Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Coffee and a Comics little book club, the second edition that we have been having. So we get to get in here and talk about King Spawn 1. But if you did miss the first one, go back and watch the rewind on our discussion on Mom, Mother of Madness and see how this goes. Quickly, the next one we are going to be doing next month is going to be on House of Slaughter. Everybody's anticipation for that is going to be great. But today we are excited because the book club actually gets to enjoy a good discussion with Spawn's editor, Thomas Healy. He is here, so I will be bringing him out shortly, but it's always cool to have an awesome book, to see the names on the inside, and to be talking with somebody whose name is actually in the credits. So we're all excited. Today, because StreamYard only allows for 6 people at my level, unfortunately, we have awesome others that are going to be in here discussing with us. We have, obviously, Thomas Healy that will be in here. Flip Through Comics, Mark from Flip Through on Instagram is going to be discussing with us. Michelle, everybody knows Michelle from Moonlit Comics. She's amazing. She's here with us as well. And we've got Brandon from Apollo City Comics also discussing King Spawn with us, and new to the comic community and also a great artist. We've got Dakota Blackwell, who will also be discussing live via webcam and chat. Also, it looks like we've got a handful of people already up here in the comments. We got Collect 'em All or Die Trying here. It looks like Something Wong. What's up, man? He's been sitting here for quite some time with his little popcorn. We've also got HK Wifey, Sheena. Everybody knows Sheena, She the Geek. She's all ready to go. If I'm not seeing anybody else because of how this is working, I apologize, but these are the ones that have been active and talking. And yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me okay and music's not too loud. But let me introduce Dakota. So say hello, Dakota. And then Brandon from Apollo City. There you go.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And here's Michelle.
Hey, guys.
Let's get Mark up in here.
Hey, what's happening?
And then thank you, Mr. Thomas Healy, for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
To the bigger screen. So I want to try to keep this time limited. Obviously, we're trying to shoot for about an hour, but if we want to extend the chat, so be it. If you guys need to leave anytime, just let us know. Let's see. Is anybody in the comments saying anything really? HK Wifey, I think we are supposed to behave in this chat. You don't got to behave at all.
Not at all.
I just hope you got your caffeine or whatever keeps you awake. So I want to kind of keep this somewhat a little bit, not quite organized, but I definitely wanted to give us the best opportunity to utilize Thomas's time, because he's been gracious enough to give it to us, for any comments, any questions, anything we can. But I also want to get into the actual discussion of the book pretty deep as well. So I do want to start with Dakota, though. And the reason why with Dakota, she's very new to the comic book world. She's an artist. Check out her artwork at Dakota Blackwell on Instagram if she wants to plug it as well. She's actually helping me with a new logo design that I've been wanting to get done, which is pretty cool. But she just read King Spawn. So I want to start with the first question to her and then give it to the rest of the panel to kind of filter down. But how did you experience this book? How did it make you feel? It's the first time you've ever read Spawn. I know this. What about it? Did it make you sad? Did it make you amused? Did it grotesquely confuse you? What was your take on it as a new comic book reader?
I was actually really impressed by how much it didn't confuse me, because this is my 4th total comic that I've ever read, And I was surprised by how easy it was to be entertained by it. Like normally, especially with Mom, I had to work at figuring out what the heck was going on. But I didn't have that problem with Spawn. So it was a lot of it was actually a pretty fun comic. It was gory, which I wasn't expecting, but that's my own fault because I had no idea what I was getting into. But yeah, solid 10 out of 10 for me.
Wow. I don't even think I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
I mean, considering four out of the four I've read, this is my favorite.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah, it is a good starting point for some new readers, but obviously this is a book that has close to 30 years history, 300 plus issues. So obviously there's a lot of baggage coming on board, and I know that Sean, the main writer for the main King Spawn story with Javi Fernandez on the art, they were trying to make it, obviously there's a few callbacks to some previous stuff, but they're trying to make it as accessible as possible. And then the 4 backup stories in it, which were written by Todd himself. A lot of those were intentionally a little vague because it was introducing some new characters and then spotlighting some old characters, which just had not been addressed in a while, to say like, hey, they're still here. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Thank you.
Of course.
Let's go down the list here that I'm seeing. So Brandon, what were your thoughts, your first rendition and reading of this? What kind of popped out the most?
I thought I'm generally a pretty big Spawn fan. Across the animated stuff, the movies, I've read the first 175 issues, and after a while they got kind of hard to access. So I was excited to finally dive into an issue 1 with Spawn since I admired the character so much. And for me, it was pretty easy to jump onto stuff. The only things that I was whenever I don't know about something, I really want to dive into it. So characters like Haunt, I've heard about the series, I've seen it, but I haven't checked it out. But now I'm even more intrigued to go back into that history and dive into it and kind of see what I could discover before this. And my biggest concern, as a Spawn fan, I was wondering how is this going to introduce everybody? This is a lot of people's first time reading something, and picking up with an issue 1, way less intimidating than 300 and I think 17 or something that's coming out or already out. But I thought it was a good catch on. I feel like there's a lot of hooks. You're outlining plot lines, and there's things that we could kind of look forward to. But there's also a lot of mystery within it. So for me, I was able to grasp on pretty well. But that's why I was so curious to jump on today to see, what were the struggles to bring out an issue 1? And what did the team have to kind of really consider? What did you maybe hold back on? Or, what were your main focuses, especially as an editor, trying to choose to bring about a more readership? What were those struggles like, and how was that, writing room going on?
Yeah, this was a tough issue. This was probably obviously the biggest issue that I had been part of. 300 being prior to that, which came out right before I actually started there. 300 being the record-breaking issue. For me personally, the hardest part is it's just artists are like cats, and wrangling all of those cats to make sure everybody's hitting their deadlines. Because you've got, if it was just like the regular Spawn issue, man, I've got Carlo Barbary, who's an amazing artist, and I've got Jay Ramos, who's the colorist, and then Todd, who's writing. So I got those 3 people. For King Spawn, that was the first issue where we had 5 different stories, 5 different creative teams, as well as 9 different covers. Some of them having their own separate colorists and inkers, and dealing with people that are around the world, in the Philippines or in Spain or in Brazil. So just managing that, it really is a 24/7 job, because I have to get on the phone or I have to get on a Zoom call with somebody that's in a time zone that's 9 hours ahead of me sometimes, or 8 hours behind me. So to me, that was the hardest part, just making sure that everything was culminating at that press day and making sure we had everything ready to go. There was 2 different lettering teams on the book, and then also making sure that it was cohesive. The main King Spawn story, written by Sean and art by Javi, was, I think, exceptional. I absolutely love Javi's art. I think it's bringing back kind of like that visceral rawness to it. that hasn't had, and then Sean's stuff is different. And a lot of people have been saying, like, what's the difference between Spawn and King Spawn? To me, the way I was always talking it, and the way I talked to Todd about it when we were coming up with these ideas was, well, there's a Batman and there's a Detective Comics. And if I read Batman, there's a likelihood that he's going to be with the JLA. There's a likelihood he's going to be in space. I mean, not every story, but you would expect that. When you read Detective, it's usually him in Gotham against his rogues gallery. So, to me, Spawn is going to be the one where Todd can do whatever he wants and explore and do weird, crazy, fun Todd McFarlane stuff. Whereas King Spawn and what Sean's doing is going to be a much more smaller, introspective, Al Simmons-centric story. And we will see other characters coming in and out, but it's really a much more personal Al Simmons story.
That makes sense.
So I hope people dig the fact that it can exist, and then obviously with Gunslinger and the Scorched coming, it's going to be even a bigger universe. But I'm glad you mentioned it, Brandon, because Haunt is one of my favorites, and that has been something that people have been wanting to come back for years and years, and he's never shown up. And then we had, the first appearance of him is he's nailed to a wall, and people are just. I remember when that image came out, people were just like losing their minds over what's going to happen with Haunt. And there's exciting stuff coming with Haunt. So if you were interested in Haunt, find those back issues out before they spike in prices. But because they're going up every day. But there is going to be more cool. Yeah.
It's so good.
That page by Steven Segovia,
dude, genius,
is just exceptional, and colors by Andrew Dahlhaus. I'm going to give all the creative team shout outs because they put in all the hard work.
They deserve it.
Yeah, that splash page was just exceptional, and that was one of my favorite pages of the book.
All right, Michelle, what about you? What's your first initial experience here?
So I am brand new to Spawn. Like, this is the first Spawn comic I've ever read. And before this, I mean, I had always kind of been interested in Spawn as a character, but I knew nothing about it. So it's intimidating to try to figure out where to start if you want to, start to familiarize yourself with the new character or hop on a series that's been around for so long. So when I heard this was coming out, I was very excited because this gave me that opportunity to get to know Spawn and the universe. And I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I didn't look up any reviews. I didn't, flip through the book at all before I sat down to read it. And so it was just like a big surprise for me. And at the end, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I loved it. The artwork blew me away. I think, it's a big universe. There are a lot of characters, I guess, that we're going to get to know. So there are some references I probably didn't get, not knowing the history. But it is an issue 1. So I think, over time, if I continue with this series, I'll really start to get the hang of things, or, I could research some stuff, but, I didn't know there were going to be the backup stories. So, I'm like, wow, this is a big book. Like, and then when I got to the end and I started realizing that, we have a backup story for all these different characters, I was just like, this is just the best. I really liked it. And I'm big into horror comics. So for me, this is kind of like a great kind of mashup of horror and also like supernatural. And I'm really digging it so far. I have a lot of other thoughts, but I guess just overall, I like it and I'm excited I gave it a shot, and I'm gonna stick with it. So
that's awesome. I just want to step in real quick because Collect 'em All or Die Trying had a question about Spawn is 300 issues. Where do you recommend is a good starting point for new readers? I just want to fill this for a half a second because I do, like Michelle just said, I think this is a brilliant place to start. Now, if you want a little bit more, go back to issue 300, 301, catch up a little bit. But I think this, for new readers of Spawn, can really get them excited and maybe want to go back, but they don't need to. You can get this and start brand new with Spawn if you want. So I think this is a good starting point. But I'll let you fill the rest, Thomas.
Yeah, I saw that comment post up, and I definitely wanted to address that. I actually have 3 different answers to that question. So, because there's 3 different styles. So one is to voice and echo you, right now is a great place to start. Jump into King Spawn #1. Just enjoy it. There'll be stuff that you don't understand, but you know what? That's what Wikipedia is for. You can
Right.
look up who one of those characters in, get filled in. And then there were new characters in that book that Todd wrote. There's Nightmare Spawn, who has never really been in the comics per se. I think he's been in the background, but then he was a toy that was really popular. So like there was never really this whole background established for Nightmare Spawn, but obviously we're bringing him into the book. So there's that. There you go. And then you've got Gunslinger #1 and The Scorched, which is the teen book, which you'll see some of these. My other answer is if you want to really kind of get a good overview of the modern stuff, go back to Spawn 296 and 297. These were the Road to 300 issues. So these were the issues that led up to the record-breaking 300. And what they did in those 2 issues was an entire retrospective of the history of Spawn over 2 issues.
Whoa.
And it was just basically this quick little staccato, like, this is what happened to Al. He got murdered, and then he comes back, and now he's a Spawn, and then he loses his powers, and he gains his powers, and Jason wins. And over those 2 issues, they just break it down quickly, and then you get to that 300. So if you're an issue collector person, find 296, 297, and just start from there and read to current. If you want to start back from the beginning, I'm going to recommend, because I think it's a great value, is the Spawn Compendium Volume 1. The first 50 issues in full color, like $50.
Yeah. And I mean, and to kind of float on that too, like just so those that might be catching this on the rewind or are in now and don't really know much about Spawn, not only, but we're at 322, I believe, coming out this month, if I remember right. So if you do jump back to 296, 297, it's not a ton to catch up on. I mean, it's a little bit, but you can still do it. So it's not a huge gamble to get into. So yeah.
Thomas,
Yeah, exactly.
what do you think about the Spawn's universe one shot? Would you recommend that I or other people getting into the King Spawn should read that?
If you're gonna jump into the modern stuff, yes, I would still recommend picking up the one shot. Again, that was just another kind of brief collection of stories that was kind of setting up a lot of stuff that we may not see resolved for a couple of issues or even a couple of arcs. But it's all stuff that we've got on the big planning, the big whiteboard in the office that has where everything is going.
Gotcha.
All of that stuff is going to be addressed.
Now, as far as the structure, will each issue have the same backup stories like through the whole series, or are they all going to branch out?
Nope. Those were all just for the #1s.
Okay.
Now, as Frank's a retailer, and I know Mark for a while now, and he's a customer, and I'm sure you're all buying comics. Comics are getting expensive. Comics are I think like the latest. I think Batman is now $6 for an issue.
Give or take, yeah.
One of Todd's things, and I love the guy for this, is we're $2.99 for our regular issues. We're $2.99. So these were like triple sized issues. So they were $5.99, and we gave you all that content. There was not ads for the books. It was all that content. Once the issue 2s start for all of these issues, they're going to be the regular size, but back down to $2.99. So they're not going to be full of the backup stories. They'll each be their own thing. So King Spawn will just be that Javier Fernandez and Sean Lewis story. Gunslinger will just be the Todd McFarlane, Brett Booth story.
I wanted to just
it's just the #1s that were these oversized that had the backups, but those backups do matter to the future of those books.
And I just wanted to make a point on that because I did get a lot of questions from a lot of different customers. Some actually were a little bit upset with the fact that King Spawn was $5.99 because they've been used to Spawn being $2.99. And I had to explain to a lot of them, like, it's only King Spawn. Everything after that is going to be back to the $2.99. It's just because this is such a big book. It's so thick. There's a lot more to it than, so they obviously, gave you more bang for your buck in it. But once I did explain that, it's going back to $2.99, most people understood. They're like, okay, cool. And they were even more excited because they're like, then they got pissed off at DC and Marvel. Like, why are they going up to $5.99, $6.99? Like, and I was like, I don't know.
And I don't know if you saw the last issue of Spawn. It has that really nice cardstock cover now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're sticking with that. We couldn't do it. People were asking why we didn't do it on the #1s, and the printer just said, this is too thick. At 56 pages, that'll split, and then people are going to have damaged books, and it'll have that.
You would probably have to have done the flat square spine in order to do that, and then
that would have made that book even more, because there'd be no way to do a bound. But yeah, all of the books post number 1 still going to be $2.99. Still going to have that nice cardstock cover, and just continue on.
I'm excited for Gunslinger, and I'm excited that the way that you guys structured the number 1 issue, we can kind of choose what characters or what additional series we want to follow, like which characters. So Gunslinger, I'm all about it. I think he's badass, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. So
let me move on to Mark real quick to get his first experience on this book and what he thought. Because I know he's a Spawn fan as well. If you can tell behind him.
I remember picking up Spawn when I was a kid when it first came out, man, seeing that cover up on the wall, grabbing that. I think I read it up through like issue 30 or 40 and then sort of got out of comics for a while there. And this sort of helped me come back for sure, especially with Thomas getting over there and working with Todd on these books. But my first initial feelings of the book, so I'll just kind of keep it stuck there, is I'm not so much nowadays into the whole the spandex superhero kind of stuff. That's not so much my bag. I'm more much into like the horror and the crime noir kind of stuff. Those first 2 pages, man, that hooked me. Right, that explosion and stuff like that. I was not expecting that from Spawn. Right, that was sure we'll get some blood and guts or whatever, but that was something else, man. I wasn't ready for that from Spawn, and so good job on hooking me as you have my interest. That
did too.
Yeah, that was rough, and that story was good too. I really and it's interesting, Thomas, how you talked about the King Spawns to be more grounded, more street level, which is my style. That's what I like. And I really felt more attracted to this that King Spawn storyline than I did to the regular Spawn storyline, which, I could take it or leave it. I mean, I don't dislike it, but it's just not so much my bag as much as this storyline was. The rest of the fill-in stories, I really wasn't familiar too much with those characters, and it was neat to see some more insight into the rest of the Spawn universe there, but I really wasn't drawn into those at all. The one I was really most excited about was that, sort of like you, Michelle, that Gunslinger Spawn, because I like the West, I like the cowboy stuff. So I thought that was cool. But I do have a gripe on that finals page, man. You see Gunslinger Spawn on that motorcycle. Kind of looks like a Harley V-Rod, man. No self-respecting outlaw is going to ride a Harley V-Rod.
It really does, actually. It really does.
No self-respecting outlaw is going to ride a Harley V-Rod. I'll just say that right there.
No. So there's actually stories behind this, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn here, and I don't think I'm going to get pulled into the principal's office. So I was like, okay. She Spawn, when we see her, she's always ridden, and she always has like a custom chopper. It's always changed a little bit, but ever since Campbell first drew her on the motorcycle, she's always had that big chopper. And then when we were getting Gunslinger, we're like, well, he's not going to drive around in a car, so he has to have a motorcycle too, and we didn't want to have another chopper. So my pitch was like, I want him to be walking by a row of motorcycles and just see like a really badass, like old school Royal Enfield like cafe racer, because he wants something fast and he wants something sleek like a stallion, like a horse. But Brett Booth is a big fan of like crotch rockets. So he was like, oh, like a Kawasaki Ninja. I'm like, ooh, I can't see him on a Kawasaki Ninja. So I think there was a lot of back and forth between the design of the bike, and then I think they just settled on that. But I don't know that that's necessarily like the established continuity motorcycle that we'll always see going forward.
All right.
But I can appreciate it. I can appreciate your concerns, Mark. You're
absolutely right. I want to go back to Brett Booth's art, man. I haven't really followed his career since way back in like Backlash.
Oh,
man. I love that series. So I haven't really followed him since then. Dude, seeing this, I love his Backlash stuff. I really, really love seeing him draw on some Spawn. Good call bringing him on, man.
Yeah, he was on my wish list from when I started there, and when we started doing other books, I'm like, Todd, you know Brett. He was there when Wildstorm started, and Todd was literally kind of like, You mean that young kid that worked for Jimmy? I'm like, yeah, that young kid that worked for Jim Lee in Wildstorm, the one that's currently the Nightwing Flash artist and critically acclaimed at DC. Yes, that guy. Can we get him to do something? And he did an unsolicited cover for us of Gunslinger. He was
That's
like, hey,
amazing.
hey guys, check this out. I did this cover. And I was like, oh, you like this guy? I'm like, I love Brett Booth. I've been a fan my whole life because of Backlash. And I was like, we got to get him on. And it just fit. It just is perfect.
Sure, yeah, he's sick.
Awesome.
His style is sick.
I want to before we get to a couple of questions that came up in the comics, segue from what you were just talking about, Thomas, about and no spoilers. Spoilers are fine on this, especially with King Spawn since it's been out for a while now. So don't be too hesitant on some of the stuff. But you mentioned She-Spawn. So for those that are watching that might not know Spawn, or some of those that are new to Spawn, you see She-Spawn in this. She's known as Jessica Priest. She pops up. She's talking to Spawn. Now, some might not know, though, she's not the first She-Spawn. The first one was Nyx, if we remember right. If I'm right on that, it's Nyx from back in the day. But I guess there were some things happen of, who was it? Did Todd make Chapel first kill Al? But then there were some legalities with Chapel, so they had to kick him to the curb. And then they brought in Nyx to take over, Jessica Priest or something to take over. And that's who we're seeing in King Spawn now, is the She-Spawn character there.
So you're getting into the good stuff. This is usually glossed over. No, I love talking about the lore. So yes, in the original comic, obviously you had the original Image founders. They were all like doing crossover stuff. So Chapel was the original person that shot and killed Al Simmons on behalf of the secret evil government organization. And then some of those guys, some of those Image founders are no longer part. I mean, Jim Lee's editor-in-chief at DC again, or now. Yeah. I should say that again. So they're just not involved. And last I heard, and don't quote me on this, I'm not the expert, but last I heard, all of that Youngblood stuff, Rob sold that to another guy. So he doesn't own that anymore. So when all that stuff got pulled out of Image, you can't really have this great backstory. So what ended up happening was they kind of retconned it in Curse of Spawn. So now we're diverging again. So has everybody here, I hope, seen the Spawn live action movie from the 90s? I'm guessing not a lot.
Do it.
Yes, it's worth it.
It's so good.
But they introduced a character in that movie named Jessica Priest, who was like the evil female assassin. So she was not part of the comics originally. She had to replace another female character that they could not use, which was another even longer story. But anyway, they retconned it and said, no, everyone thought it was Chapel, but it was really Jessica Priest. So that was it. It was written that way. Now, flash forward, Nyx was the new She-Spawn because she stole a little bit of Al's powers. He then is murdered in the 300 issues. And she turns out to be a friend of Jessica Priest. And when Jessica Priest tries to revive her, the power's transferred to Jessica Priest.
Nice.
So now
Love that.
couple quick questions from the comments. One coming from Collect 'Em All or Die Trying. John, he says, can we discuss the opening with the building explosion with the children inside? This, I think, Mark alluded to as well in the first couple pages that just bring you into this story because of course some teachers hanging out with his kids and they're talking and all of a sudden boom, we all I think got a little impacted by that initially, and it really kind of went two different ways. One thought for me though, and I want to run this past you, Thomas, was this school intended to be just a regular public school in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, or in this area? Somebody I talked to a while ago, they were trying to explain it to be something like it's a private Catholic or Christian school or something, which I wouldn't think the dude would pull out a Bible and explain, does everybody know what this is, and start reading past it from, if that's what it was. But that's my thought process in there.
No, this was just a random school. This was just a school, and it kind of establishes throughout the issue that there's a group called Psalm 137, and they're kind of this fanatical group. And at the end, you see who their leader is. Now that was for those. Now, some of the newer readers may not know, but I do see people talking about him in the chat there. Old school Spawn readers know at the end of that issue who that is, who the dude in the chair is, the big fat dude in the chair. And you find out, obviously, issue 2, it's the full reveal of who he is. And I don't want to spoil anything for people that are still doing it. But it, obviously, if you know who that is, you realize that the children being involved in that was not a surprise. But the Psalm 137 group, you're going to see them play a role in King Spawn going forward.
Yo, I didn't pick up on that reading that, and then now that you say that, I'm like, oh shit.
You got it now.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Let me go down the line real quick. Dakota, what were your thoughts on that sequence and those few panels, especially dealing with the explosion? I believe you're muted. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, my bad. So
all right, there you go.
That's what got me hooked, and that's what got me understanding that I was not going to get a copy for my little brother. It was that exact moment when I realized that this is not for kids. Because again, I didn't know what was going on. And I thought it was really well done too. Like I focus a lot. What got me into comics was the art, and so I focus a lot on the art. But I felt like it was a movie playing in my head, to be completely honest. I was at work and trying to focus on anything but work, but it was probably my favorite scene just based on how well I read it.
I'm glad you thought that, because that again, a tough scene, and that was kind of where we went back and forth with that. You know, do we do this? And that was kind of where Sean, when he was pitching his story ideas to us, was, but this is why I want this, because this I think makes it more personal. And I felt that the dialogue back and forth with Spawn and Jessica was also, I think it leans into that, where you're seeing that this is unhinging Al more than in the past. It's not just, oh no, I'm fighting a demon in a warehouse and there's nothing behind this. This is, no, I have to find out who did this and why and stop them, because I don't want to come back to a funeral of a child and go back to a cemetery like this. And this is kind of like the big driving force of why he's kind of like really hyper focused leading into this
yeah, the family that he lost at one point, you know.
Exactly.
I think that's a big part of it. So Brandon, what about you? What was your take on that opening sequence? And
you know, it's kind of crazy to read stuff like that, especially in a comic nowadays. And I love that, because you're kind of addressing issues that are happening. I mean, there's stuff in Canada where they found, you know, buried children, and there's attacks across the country every single day in schools. And you guys are really making us, you know, making a mass amount of people realizing that this is, you know, a comic book, but this is also reality. And this kind of brings into the whole, this is what comics are for. We wish we had these kind of characters to come save us, to come help us. And, you know, it may not be an asteroid hitting the earth or aliens invading and stuff like that, but this is a topic where it's like, you know, we wish we had someone to stop these type of events and find a reason and a cause, because there really seems to not be a reason and a cause other than madness. And a comics, I always look forward to escape reality, but sometimes you have to face it and kind of see what the outcome would be if there was someone there to help you. But also just facing the truth, you know. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, it's really, you know, attention grabbing for the first 2 pages. I was at a laundromat doing my laundry when I was reading this, and I was looking around, I was like, oh my God. Like, so, I mean, I loved it, and I was curious if there was any, you know, lashback, criticism, pushback on this opening scene.
Surprisingly, none that I've seen. I haven't seen any, and you know, I like to read through the comments on any of Todd's posts and stuff like that, and people are not afraid to tell him that they don't like what he's doing at all.
Not at all.
They're not at all afraid to be very vocal about what they don't like about Todd McFarlane. But no, I haven't seen anything specific at all mentioned like that. That was too much. But I mean, it's that book. I mean, I see in the comments, people are mentioning issue 5 with Billy Kincaid. I mean, that's. He's never been afraid to hit tough things, because there are things like that get him. I think Todd writes a little bit of himself in Spawn, and I know like that's something that he was, you know, would upset him. So it's going into and having these conversations, I know he was fine with that as long as we didn't make light of it. And I think what Sean wrote to continue, and obviously you guys haven't seen what's going to happen and come out of that. I think it takes care of that. I think it takes care of the situation without making light of it.
Michelle, what was your point? Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon. Go ahead first, real quick.
Just real fast. The writing, the explanation, what Spawn was saying, the whole conversation with them at the funeral scene, I felt like was really like the hitting point behind all of that. Talking about how mothers have been burying their children for thousands of years, like that all kind of brought it in a full circle of like understanding and revealing a true purpose for showing something like that. So I really applaud the writing and your editing and guiding this process on that part too.
That's great. And Michelle, what's your take on that little sequence of explosion?
Right. So that was the last thing I expected when I started reading this. I did not expect for that to take up, the first couple of pages, but I think it served its purpose and it gave us an emotional kind of attachment to the story, and it brings Spawn's universe into a reality that we can connect with. But it didn't take up too much of the story. It was just enough to be like, okay, this is what happened. And then, by page 4, that's when I was like, okay, that was really when I became hooked on the story. The graveyard scene, the funeral scene.
Oh, man.
I was like, okay, now I see why they gave us that little glimpse into the school bombing, So I thought it was fantastic. And that graveyard scene I was like, okay, I can get into this. The artwork, just the way that the story opened up by page 4, I'm hooked because of those events. So yeah, I liked it.
That's cool stuff. One thing I want to lead to now is a little bit about the characters in there. We know Spawn, we know Jessica Priest, but there's one thing that I particularly, I don't know if I got confused on it, maybe because I do know some about Spawn, but I haven't read everything that Spawn has been a part of. But there was one character in this book that I thought was going to play. I mean, he played a big role in this, surprisingly enough, but a very short role at the same time. But I got a little confused, and it's this dude right here. I'm going to try to show. So Metatron, right?
Metatron.
Right. So, and again, spoiler, earplugs if you don't want to hear this, but I need to put it out there. So my experience in the Spawn universe with this character was a while back, and correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, on this, if I can remember right, but was a female at one point. And then in this, he shows up as this dude, but then he's killed near the end of the thing, and he's gone. So I just want a little clarification on that. I mean, it kind of like threw me off a little bit, but I just know he was supposed to be a she at one point, or maybe I don't know. Let me let you.
As far as most of the angelic or demonic beings, I don't think that there necessarily is ever needing to be like a hard gender set,
right?
Because people have changed. So this was literally just supposed to be Metatron. If you've watched the great Kevin Smith movie Dogma.
Okay.
The voice of God. So this was just kind of like, hey, if you go back to, again, Spawn was written in '92. Lots of stuff has changed in the world, which is also kind of, I think, reflected in this issue, where typically you get the Spawn reporter page. They call it the classic reporter page, the 3 talking heads.
Yeah.
And this one we decided to do something different to kind of modernize it a bit. So you get the chat room, where you've got the people chatting back and forth, because we're like, hey, if this is this new, organization of, international weirdos that are in a cult, like nobody's going to be watching, who's watching the news on cable TV anymore. They're going to be in like a 4chan chat room or something private. Right. That's why we designed that room. So you'll see that in this book, maybe a little bit more than you'll see the classic 3 reporter talking heads. But to get back to Metatron, you're supposed to think like he's the guy that's organizing this. He's the voice of God. And in the Spawn universe, we know heaven isn't the good guys. They're just the other guys that aren't hell. Neither one of them are really good. They don't neither care about humanity. So this is the modern iteration. What's he going to be doing? He's running chat rooms. He's running TikToks. He's running his own web empire. You think this is the guy behind it all. This is the strong power. Spawn knows, oh, Metatron, he's this big player in the world of angels. He's got to be the guy behind this. Nobody's better at this than him. And when they finally get to him, nope, he's dead.
Okay.
He's not even the
Loved
villain.
that
There's
twist.
somebody worse.
The choice
Yeah,
to
no,
kill
that-
him off
that-
page was striking. You know, he gets set up as someone to be sort of a badass, but then to have him killed off page was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Definitely shocking. So there was another thing that you just brought up too about the 3 talking head newscasters, if that's kind of what we're doing. That page that you actually had in the book, it's funny. Maybe I'm just, I don't know, resting on my own previous like ideas of like what I think newscasters are these days, but maybe you guys did this intentionally. Let me try to find that page real quick. Here it is. So you got, if you can see this, we've got CRN, we got this Info Now, and then we got Info Max. And to me, this broke it up into 3 components of our news network today. We've got Info Max down here is just our shock jock types, right? Like the people that are either on whatever platforms that we can find. We got
YouTube.
CRN, which is, YouTube. We got CRN, which is more like our CNNs or our MSNBCs or whatever more. And it's very professional. And then in the middle, we have like these ones that give, what would you call it? Like a, our opinion kind of news rooms that are on mainstream. Is that kind of what you guys were going for in that 3 sequent element?
Yeah.
Or is it? Okay.
This has been a page since Spawn 1.
Okay.
And it's not every issue, but it's most issues. And this is kind of, Todd always uses this as his own little platform. And yes, there were always those 3. And I think the way he looked at it is the first one. And they have changed names over the years because if you go back to the early Spawns, I think he used legitimate news networks.
Yeah.
He actually used the CNN logo and then E when E was a thing, when E Entertainment was a thing. But the last one always was different because, that was, I think, probably originally maybe Rush Limbaugh. Now it's a little bit maybe Alex Jonesy. But that last guy is always the ridiculous one. The first one's usually the very emotional, left-leaning one. And then I always like to consider the middle one is the more, this is the facts. That's NPR. Here's just the facts of what the situation was. And you go through there. The other kind of running joke is, if you look at the logo for the last guy, every few issues we change it because he keeps getting fired because he's kind of crazy and he says stupid things. And they have established in the comic, if you go back and read, that he is actually a demon. He's not human.
I mean,
but
it looks
yeah,
like him.
Yeah, he always
I'm gonna
they always get
put me
changed.
bigger so they can see that. And that's the logo. It's the upside down image logo. It looks like.
I really love I love that I just found out that this has been a thing in Spawn Comics because this is one of my favorite parts of this issue, and I just love that it's been carried over from the beginning. That's fantastic. So yeah.
Oh yeah. That was
and-
always a great way to just progress the background story without having Spawn to do a bunch of exposition.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I like the chat room scene too. So
Hey, Thomas, I got a question for you. The Talking News Heads, I know that's been there since issue 1. I'm curious where Todd got inspired with that. And I just want to say he got inspired by Dark Knight Returns with Frank Miller doing that. But where did that whole concept come from? Because it's been a mainstay.
I would not be surprised if it was literally because of Uncle Frank.
Sure.
He loves Frank. They're friends. Little known fact that Todd inked some of the Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
Uncredited. He did some brick walls. He had just broken into the industry and did some brick walls. But yeah, he's always loved Frank Miller. So I think that was definitely a nice homage to him for that reason.
That's funny. Okay, next little segment I want to kind of like just shoot into was there anything, I'm going to go down the line with everybody. Is there anything in this that struck you as pretty, I don't know, something you were excited about to see, something like you didn't expect to see that kind of came up? I'm going to just shoot out 2 little things. The scene where Spawn broke into, I forget the dude's name right now, but he's especially the dude tied in with like Heaven. And then we got that mistress in there that he's like kind of hooking up with, and she's pretty much, one of the creations of the devil. And I think Spawn comes down and is like, hey, if you're boss knew what you're doing right now, you'd be a little bit would be hurt or offended by it. But when he attacks that chick to say, hey, I need information, I need you to decode this, tell me what's up, and then they go down that path. And also, one side note, I love that I saw Sam and Twitch in this. I didn't expect to see Sam and Twitch, really. So that was really cool, and I love to see that. But those are some aspects of it that I really enjoyed, and it was cool. But
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing, too. I hate to take this, but Mark Rawson was in this. And if everybody knows, he's essentially a failed journalist that now works for Spawn to help him get information and has been. And he's always, in my mind, because I think of Punisher when I associate everything, he's like the micro to Spawn, essentially. Like, you know, Punisher has micro to get all of his information, and Mark has Spawn has Mark to do it all. But those are the three elements that really sparked me. Sorry about that.
No, you're right. That's a great analogy. He is the microchip, and again, I tell people there's so much subtlety in a lot of these issues. If you want to go back and get into these stuff, go back into like the 280s and actually read through it. Mark wasn't even the guy that volunteered to help Spawn. Basically, Spawn kidnapped him.
Yeah.
Said, "You're in my secret base. The only way you can get in and out is through the shadows. You don't even know where it is, but you're going to help me because I need it." And eventually that relationship kind of merged, and Mark realizes, oh, there's all this crazy stuff going behind the world that I didn't even know existed. But yeah, that beginning relationship wasn't, I'm going to help you. It was just like, you're coming with me because I need you right now. So I always felt that was interesting. But yes, where Mark's going is going to be an interesting story too, where it's him, you know, as medieval Spawn, and nobody realizes it yet. That he's constantly getting possessed by the spirit of medieval Spawn. So it's interesting to see where that kind of ends up. But yeah, those pages where you're talking about where Spawn meets with the angel and Leviathan, who's the woman, that was some of my favorite Javier stuff, and that was one of the earlier pages he turned in where we went, this book is crime noir. This can be in black and white. This page is amazing. Like, just Spawn kind of materializes, and it's this weird angle from the ceiling, and you see all the shafts of light, and that is what sold us on Javi's art.
I would love to see this in black and white, man. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
Dude, absolutely. But on that note, Mark, why don't you go next into what you like, some of the points that you found were like the best out of this and what you enjoyed, or shocked you even, like you didn't expect.
Well, I think I'll just pick up on that scene we were just talking about, where Spawn comes down, where we got the angel and the demon, and Spawn which gets the sigil translated. This one panel here, where Spawn's like flashing across. She says, "Oh, hey, we don't have any dominion here," but he zaps across and gets her. I got vibes like, I don't know if you remember that wonderfully horrible movie Chronicles of Riddick, where those dudes like sort of phase across and hit people. I totally feel like Spawn did that like shadow phase thing, and like, I don't know, I just thought that was fucking cool.
Just out of nowhere.
Rather than just kind of walk up and hit her, he just sort of shifted across the shadows. I thought it was pretty badass. The Metatron thing, I thought that was a really cool scene. I was not expecting that. I didn't know who that dude was. And then the head's blowing off. Scanners, right?
Yeah.
I love seeing Sam and Twitch. Hopefully, as we see more of them in King Spawn, kind of like where you're saying, Thomas, that whole crime noir aspect. I love that street level stuff, man.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be really cool if we see more resurgence of those guys.
I think that's fair to say.
Cool.
Yeah.
The other stories didn't grab me near as much. Although I just loved looking at that gunslinger Spawn, man. That Brett Booth, his art on that, and I really want to see what happens with that. Minus the V-Rod. Everything else, like pulling up that trunk of guns. What was that old Western where that dude's dragging around that coffin that's just full of guns? It's that old classic Western. I think it was a Django or something like that, right? It's old spaghetti Western where a dude's dragging around this trunk full of guns and firearms and shit. I love seeing him pulling that up. I thought that was just a really cool scene. So there's cool stuff in there. I like it. See that King Spawn again, go that street level.
we are. I actually, while we were doing this, I got an email. I'm sorry if I was looking away, from Brett, and we are getting rid of that motorcycle, and he's just going to use a Vespa going forward. He's gonna go, it's going to be like Quadrophenia. He's going to dress like Sting. It's going very mod with the book. People were expecting
the
used to be very mod.
The 2 wheels up front and the one in the back. Yeah, that'll be
that'd be brilliant.
That's
Let's
hard.
do it.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon. What stuck out about you? Like, what stuck out to you in this episode, this series?
The way you described it as Detective Comics, and that really makes sense now, and that's what really kind of just made the light bulb go off. Because what I loved about it was that we're getting a whole spectrum of the Spawn characters. Once we got to Haunt, and then we get to see Redeemer, and I didn't really expect to see Gunslinger Spawn in this issue. So I don't really know anything about Gunslinger Spawn. And there's a lot of hype about him everywhere, and clearly everybody here is hyped about Gunslinger Spawn. So I was just curious just to get a taste of that character. But Redeemer's always been one of my favorites, and I've seen how Redeemer's changed hosts every couple issues and every few storylines. So just seeing somebody else in the costume from where I've read up to, like I said, I'm in the early or late 100s, around 170 or so. And so I think it was just really cool to see the characters and see Hans, like I brought up earlier, but just seeing this Spawn family come about. And I'm just curious to see where they all go. But Haunt and Redeemer, hype for that. And the whole eye thing going on with Redeemer, curious. Cool. I want to backtrack more. But also the goriness for just being a number one. I feel like it got turned up like more than ever. And it was it gave you the taste what I expect from a Spawn comic,
Just to tie into that, I want to, there's an aspect of it. I think it's in the Nightmare Spawn, dude. The one panel that really stuck out in the show is when he's talking to one of his underlings and he's calling him a traitor, and it's this one right here where he just pokes him in his eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, like that's it, like, dude, that's just.
And then it gets even worse. I mean, it's wicked.
Okay. On that, Michelle, why don't you kind of go down a couple of things that stuck out to you, being kind of new to Spawn world at least.
Yeah, well, like I said before, the backup stories were like a big surprise to me. I didn't even know that was coming when I read it. So, and I didn't expect all the the violence, but I love it, and I think the way that the artwork is done, it just makes it really like enjoyable to see all the blood and the guts and the explosions. And I mean, even though the Nightmare backup story was so disturbing, it's like you can't look away because it's so well done. And I really liked how the artwork in the main King Spawn story, it changes up so much, especially with the colors. And I was thinking about this when we, I forget who mentioned it, but we were talking about how this could totally be in black and white. But I think the coloring really helps to change the mood throughout the story. Like, I mean, from the graveyard scene to the introduction of Metatron, Metatron, like it's two completely different vibes. And I love how the art can change like that. And I was very surprised that Metatron was not, that he was killed. Because I was like, right. Oh, okay, like this is our main villain, right? Like this hipster looking dude, like this is who we're going to be dealing with for the rest of, for a while. But and then he's killed off, and that was actually one of my favorite pages. This splash page here, like look at that, it's insane. And I just love everything about this. Yeah, and I was also surprised, I guess, not being familiar with Spawn, that the whole theme is kind of like heaven versus hell, good versus evil, angel, demon, and there's so many players on both sides. And I'm just really excited to kind of see how this is going to all unfold. It's just, I'm really impressed by it all. And I do like Haunt too. That the ending of that backup story left me wanting more. I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, like a little cliffhanger. And then Gunslinger, I like that it's going to be like a time travel type of thing. So I dig it.
Before I get to Dakota's point, I just want to bring up that scene one more time that we're talking about where Spawn flies in on the Senator. And I think Michelle's right, like the way that the colors shifted from panel to panel and page to page. But I like Mark's idea. If this would have been in black and white and actually just did that to get it into like, obviously Spawn's on a detective mode. He's like, I'm here detecting. And that would have been a cool like little noir thing. But yeah. It's a pretty cool thing. But Dakota, what were some things that popped out for being a new comic book reader, for being into Spawn for the first time? Anything shocking, anything like you really, really liked? What stuck out most?
I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about face exploding guy. Can we let's talk about what we know, what a new person has seen so far in this book. Up until that point, I've seen, obviously, all the children blown up, and that was really sad and traumatic. However, you didn't see any blood. You didn't see any dead bodies. But no, then you have face exploding guy, and then the very next page is him still dead, sitting up, all bloody and gory. Like, think of the artist that had to sit there and paint it, like, super slowly and precisely. Like, how long do you think it takes them to draw a whole bunch of blood? All up a bunch. And then finally, we have this just very lovely page of blood and gore. Like, there is a face in there. There is a whole bloody, gory face. I loved every second of it, though.
The caption on that page is brilliant too. That description they have on that one.
Where's Dad? Like, how sad is that? Where's Dad? Little boy, covered in blood. Again, everything's covered in blood. But I mean, it was still great. Like, that it almost makes it better to think of the artist that had to sit there that draw that by hand.
What you got to think about, there's also the conversations that need to be had and the Zoom meetings you get on the Zoom meeting with Todd and Steven Segovia and Andrew Dahlhaus, the colorist for the Haunt story, and have Todd go, well, let's think about this. He's probably been stuck to the wall for about 7 hours. So how much of that blood is going to coagulate? So I don't want it to be too bright red. It needs to be brown and oxidized. And these are the conversations you have to have. Like, because, he wasn't just stabbed through the wall. He's been hanging there for a while. So the blood can't be too red.
You know what? I'm looking at the page he's talking about, and he's 110% right. I didn't even notice it, but it is super brown.
Yeah.
Versus what was the face exploding blood.
I love that, and like Thomas, that page, those two pages were one of my favorites out of the entire issue 1. That and the death of Metatron scene, absolutely hands down 2 favorite pages.
Oh, hold on. Well, I'm sorry, guys. It looks like I totally missed somebody here. I want to see if I can get her in. Looks like Caitlin Engel popped in and she was chatting in the private chat. I'm such a moron. I missed it. She says, I think we had an awesome job trying to real events. Frank's heard my issues with modern comics trying to pull this stuff off, but I really think Spawn did a great job with this. Okay, it looks like Caitlin, sorry, we're not able to bring you into the chat because it's only letting me have 6 people, but I didn't mean to cut that off completely. I'm a horrible host. I messed that up completely. But it looks like Caitlin is in here with us. We just can't hear or see her. So.
Like I said, we did try to have.
Sorry, I mean, if we want to switch me out, I'm sure Caitlin would have good things to say too. I don't mind that.
Let me attempt that real quick since we got about 15 minutes left before Thomas has to leave. So let me see what's up. All right, say goodbye.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you.
Yes,
it was nice to meet you, Dakota.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining.
I honestly didn't realize I was meeting such royalty in the comic world. So I appreciate the heads up, Frank. Really, I do. Anyway, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. My phone is heating up really bad, too. So I'm going to head out. But thanks for having me and letting me talk.
Absolutely.
This was awesome.
Thanks for
joining.
Let me see if this will work out.
Tim Vigil as a cover artist. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. He has that style, Mark, that I think would lend itself well to us. That's one of the things is while we're talking about covers, that was one of the things that I tried to do when I came on. Is there's these great cover artists that have always kind of, you've seen them before on Spawn. You know, Francesco Mattina is amazing. Greg Capullo does amazing covers. I'm trying to find some people that we haven't seen often, and we have some great cover artists coming up. Donna Gio is the only cover I think we've seen so far from him is King Spawn 2. If you look at the preview for that, he's going to be a new cover artist that we've got coming on, which is, I'm really excited. And then when the press release goes live on Monday, you're going to see his Scorched #1 cover, which is absolutely incredible. So I am looking for some people that are not the traditional Spawn cover artists. So if anybody has any suggestions, like, shoot them my way.
All right, I want to introduce Caitlin real quick and put her on the spotlight and let her come in. I think her mic is still muted, so she has to unmute that to get it going. But I want her to just throw her 2 cents out about this issue of Spawn and what she thought, and kind of come up with the elements of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Hi, Caitlin.
So, hi. I've never read Spawn before. I've never really jumped into anything other than DC. But for sure it was different, and I really liked it. I like when comics go a little more out there, even in like the first issue. So I really liked how right from the start they just went for it. But like Frank's heard me talk about it before, I don't like a lot of modern comics. I have a lot of issues with what they do in modern comics. But this one was good. I think they did a really good job of bringing in like the more realistic issues without like being like, look at me, look at what I'm doing with this comic.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tough to do. I mean, and I think that the lucky part of it is, even that Todd's not the main writer on this, he's still creative director. So him and myself and Sean, we talk almost daily about where the direction is going. And Todd has been one of the few people that I think has effectively, since the launch of Spawn in '92, been able to still keep the real world elements in it without it seeming contrived. He did stuff, the Billy Kincaid stuff, which we talked about before. He did an issue where Spawn dealt with the KKK, because a lot of people forget. He's an African American hero. Al Simmons is a black guy.
I think a lot of people forget that.
With fighting against the KKK and dealing with racism and stuff like that.
I mean,
because he doesn't really have the alter ego that a regular superhero has.
Right. And I think that's something that, when I was a kid first getting into Spawn, it did stick out to me, because growing up where I grew up in Utah, predominantly white, when I first came across Spawn and Al Simmons being a black guy, and he's this new superhero on, at least in my mind, like, I think he was the reason why I got more in tune to look into Luke Cage and love Luke Cage as a superhero, because Spawn was the first African American or black character that I really got introduced to. But I think because of his alter ego as Spawn, everybody forgets he's a black dude, and nobody really knows it. Especially if you're new to him, maybe you don't really understand and see that. And I think that's a great way. But they don't Todd's never had to make it a huge highlighted ordeal. He just is who he is. They never had to make this big issue about it, and I've loved it. And I think it goes back to like our last comic book club when we talked about Mother Madness. In that issue, at least for me, they had to highlight so much stuff for today's age, and it was just too much. But I get that concept. So I love what Spawn does and has always done for the most part, of just being a comic book, and they highlight certain very important parts, but they don't go overboard with it too much, I think. So it's great.
And it's something that he doesn't. And again, for the difficulty of this issue, and I know just listening to everybody talk tonight, it's certainly there is still so much that I hate to say it, and maybe Brandon and Frank and maybe Mark a little bit know, but there's so much you guys I don't think know. There's a reason behind everything. Like I know, like Michelle, the first time she read the Haunt story, and she's probably going, "Who's the dude with the angel wings?" And then who's the ghost standing behind him on the couch going, I don't know who that is. If you haven't read Hunt, you don't know who any of that is, and you don't know what the significance of that is. So I hope that even if you are using King Spawn #1 or Spawn's Universe as a jumping on point, I hope that encourages you to go, okay, I want to find out about who that character was. Why is there a ghost in Haunt's apartment? And why is the fact that Nightmare Spawn is in this book, why is that an important or a big deal? And what's going on with Gunslinger Spawn, and why is he on a motorcycle and not riding a horse? So that kind of stuff. And I hope that it opens up the use. And if not, great, just enjoy what comes out from here on out. But again, you've got close to 30 years worth of material that you'll have the ability to dig through if you do choose to go back.
And I love that there's a choice. You don't have to know everything to enjoy this, it seems like, but it does make me want to go and research and dig and find out, because I live for those types of connections with old comics. And so the fact that a modern comic I'm reading now has that type of history that I can connect and discover, it's amazing. So yeah, this is awesome.
I was going to ask, the compendium, the first volume came out earlier this year, and I noticed that volume 2 is slated to come out later this year, and that's going to be the next 50 issues. Do you guys, are you planning on releasing like Haunt or maybe Curse of Spawn, like re-releasing some of these other older titles, Sam and Twitch with the TV show coming out?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously with the launch of Spawn's Universe, I mean, a lot of people don't even realize how much work goes into it. But to use Compendium 2 as an example, that book is 1,182 pages. I was just reviewing some of the files for that. So even if I wanted to print that now, our printer needs to have the availability and the paper quantity. So we couldn't even print it until December if we wanted to, which is why it's not getting printed until December, and it'll be out at the end of December, I think beginning of January. So it's just because it's such a big book, like there's literally limitations, like we can't just decide to. So number 3, we're literally working on now, which is exciting. And then, because that'll actually include issues that have never been collected before at all, that have never hit trade. And then we are working on other trades, books like that, Haunt, Sam and Twitch, definitely, Curse of Spawn, are all books that we're working on getting out, as well as some of the higher end volumes, like an omnibus slipcase style, to continue with that. We've done 4 volumes of that so far, but it's been years in between them. But we are trying to do that, and then as well as keeping up with the new trade. So this year has been a little slow in getting those out, simply because we've been working so long on getting these issue number 1s out and onto the market. But starting next year, you'll see a bigger uptick in some of the collected editions coming out with some of the older stuff. So it'll be easier for people to jump in and read some of that classic material.
And I
want to put one pause
say,
on there. Hold on one second, but I'm sorry. I just want to, because I know Tom's got to go here shortly, but I want to put it out to those that are in the comment section. If anybody has any last minute comments or questions for Thomas before he takes off, if you can type them in real quick and get them out there. I know there's a delay, so it might take 30 or so seconds before it comes in. And so we can get at least 2 or 3 questions for him answered from anybody that's in the comment section right now. So I'll let that go in. But what were you going to say, Brandon? Go ahead.
And it's more of just a comment. I think it's still on Comixology, but I want to say the first volume of Hunt was on Comixology, at least last time I checked, maybe a month or so ago.
They should all be.
Okay, cool.
I don't think we've ever pulled anything off. Image is really good about keeping that stuff in there. So that's a little bit of a misconception. Just like, I'm not an Image employee. I work directly for Todd. Todd has TMP, which is basically the publishing division, and he's also the president of Image. But we publish all of the Spawn stuff in-house, and then Image distributes it. So, but Image has been really good about keeping all of that stuff in print. So if digitally available, obviously most of that stuff should be out there. But some people still want a physical copy. I prefer. I never was able to get into digital comics. I've tried on iPads and other readers, and I just want an actual comic or a book.
Once in a while I'll try digital, but yeah, I need that single issue in my hand. Yeah. And I know it's not the cost-effective way to do things sometimes, but it's definitely what I love. Okay, we do have a question here coming in. It looks like from Collect Them All or Die Trying. Hey, Neely, this should be Healy. He apologizes. Do you consider yourself a Spawn expert? How many times do you have to read an issue before it hits the shelves?
A lot. No, I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I definitely know way more than I did now. Than I did. There are Spawn fans out there on some of the Facebook groups that I know will just know way more than me. They're rattling off issue numbers and stuff like that. But I've read through every issue. At this point, I have read through at least once every issue, just so I have a general thing. When it comes to actually putting an issue to bed, probably go through the final script and lettered pages. I'll only read the actual typed out script once or twice before Todd sends it to the letterer. I'm more concerned about reading the final lettered pages with the bubble placements to make sure they're in the right spots. Probably over the course of the 3 days that it takes to put a book, about a dozen times.
Nice.
Wow.
And the hard part about that is you don't want to go, because hey, I'll be the first to admit, on a 56-page book, we're going to miss stuff sometimes. We were talking about it ahead of time. Spawnverse #1, page 1 has an error in it that I missed, and that's with me, Todd, my production assistant, all reading through it. It just does happen, because after you read through the same thing multiple times, then you know what it's going to say, and you actually stop reading it. You just expect to happen. So I have to slow myself down to read
it's interesting
every word.
Because reading through King Spawn, there's a couple of things that popped up that I think could have potentially been an error. But then it's interesting because as just a reader, I think maybe this is how the writer wanted it for some kind of an accent or some kind of other dialogue element. So I don't think a lot of people really focus too heavy on a lot of the issues. Now, obviously, if there's a lot of errors back to back to back, then it's going to be just hard to read and not there. But I think sometimes it just could sound like an accent or something else that it's meant to be. But
So spelling issues obviously are one thing. Grammar within thought bubbles is treated differently than grammar within text boxes. The text boxes are usually exposition or internal monologue. That should be correct. That, you know what I'm saying? That should be presented to the reader. People saying things, we misspeak all the time. And one of the things, and this obviously was more Sean than Todd, but Todd did all those backup stories. Todd is a big proponent of writing real dialogue and writing how real people talk.
Yeah.
So, cuz isn't the right way to say it. You say because, but people still say cuz.
Right.
The word nother doesn't exist, but people will still say, that's a whole nother story. So there is words and there is jargon and there is slang that when Todd writes, he does use intentionally, even though grammatically it not be correct, it's correct for that character. So so it's a fine line, and people have called me out on that, but like, no, that was intentional. I even asked him about that. So there are certain things like that, but text boxes obviously are different. But grammar errors within dialogue is not always a mistake.
Right.
Nice.
Okay, now let's wrap this up a little bit with Thomas, because I know he's got to get going. Anybody have any last quick questions for him or anything else that's on? I mean, I got a million, but I don't want to waste his time, so I know he's got to get off. But anything else that we could throw at him real quick?
Yeah, I guess a fun one. If you could humor us with your funniest or like an interesting memory from this whole King Spawn project. Like, is there anything that sticks out that was just, a ridiculous moment or something that you'll never forget, like from working with the crew?
The blood, like I said before, the blood conversation. The blood conversation was pretty fun. Having to sit and discuss how long was Haunt stuck to a wall with butcher knives, and in that case, and then you don't want to. I mean, I was like, I'm not Googling that. I don't want to see photos, like real pictures of that. Surprisingly, managing the Spawn books, I'm not a huge fan of horror, so it's like I'm not going to look at photos of that. Another one was I had to do this twice with Todd, and I think one time it might have been Spawn's Universe. #1, it may not have been King Spawn, but I had to explain to him that you can't say that a person was hung. You have to say a person was hanged. a picture is hung on the wall. Hanged is the act of putting a rope around someone's neck until they die. So a person is never hung. A person is always hanged. So it was like a 10-minute conversation explaining why I had to correct that. He's like, but he was already dead. I'm like, but the past tense of hang is hanged, not hung. And I had to do that twice. And the funny's like, but how do you know that? I'm like, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so it's things like that.
And I also wanted to know real quick, when did you first start working on Spawn? Like when and how did you start?
It was 2 years ago in November. So this coming November will be 2 years. Prior to that, I had worked in some comic shops, and I was actually working for a hospice.
Wow. Okay.
And it just, I've had a lot of interesting jobs. So
yeah.
I talk about blood splattered on walls.
That's an interesting shift from hospice to Spawn editor.
I
love it.
You get burnt out. Hospice workers get burnt out real easily.
Yeah.
It's a step job. So then I went back to managing a comic book shop at the time, and then somebody that I knew that was there was moving on to another position, and they were like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I was like, "Come in for an interview." And my interview consisted of me getting walked to the office by Todd, and he goes, "Well, that's where Shannon used to sit. Let's see how that chair fits you." And I sat down at her desk. He goes, "Oh, that's good." And we talked for about 2 hours, and by the end of the day, he's like, "All right, when can you start?"
Wow.
Nice.
And that's how it happened. It was just a perfect storm.
Had you worked on any other comic titles before?
No,
In the past?
not
Wow.
no. I've written a couple of self-published things and some small stuff, but it was just the scenario there was it's a very small office. I mean, if we want to get technically, the group that works on Spawn, other than Todd, consists of 3 people
Wow.
that put out all books. Myself, my production artist, and my production assistant. The 3 of us.
I saw the now hiring post that he did a while back for looking for a new colorist, I think it was, and the office they were shown seemed pretty tight knit, pretty small. So
they needed some painters. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did magic too, Mark. Yes. But yeah, so there's publishing and toys are 2 different things. But yes, so publishing was a real small office. It's just the 3 of us and Todd. So it was a scenario when that job came about. The scenario was Todd, basically the person who was doing it before me, was like there 10 years, and she's still there. She just now works higher up with Todd on other things. And he was like, just find someone that you would trust to take over this job. And I've known Shannon for 15 years. So she's like, I know you can do it.
Perfect.
That's it.
Yeah.
Come in and do it. So, and that's kind of how that all started.
Cool.
And now I'm actually editing some other non-Spawn titles. If anybody's a fan of System of a Down, John Zolmayan, the drummer, has a book out called Essentia. I'm the editor of that book as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And then John Leguizamo's got a new book that was just announced.
That one I'm excited for.
Yeah.
Called Phenomics, and I'll be editing that book as well.
Really? Might have to have you back on here again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when that drops, we might have to do our book club book of the month.
Please tell me Leguizamo's doing a Violator comic.
Oh, I wish. Oh my god.
Yeah. That would be. I was telling Todd, like, man, can we get him dressed up and do like a photo cover of him as Clown again? Because they're still friends. Like, they became friends on the movie set, and they're still friends, which is why John's doing a book now. It's going to be published through us. So.
Nice. That's super cool. Any other reading recommendations, or what else is on your shelf right now that you could have us check out?
Without just being too image heavy, I'm a big fan of Department of Truth right now. I'm very much into that. I know he's not everybody's taste, but I'm a fan of Bendis as his writing. I like his writing style. So I've been enjoying the Checkmate series quite a bit. I try to read as much as I can, but I get behind. Shaky Kane and now I'm not forgetting. Mark, what was that book? The Shaky Kane book.
Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel was the one shot that just came out.
top tier.
Yes, and then Mark just recommended Cherry Blackbird to me. And I just picked up issue 1 on that. That was phenomenal.
Cherry Blackbird for sure. Mark actually tuned me in on that one as well.
So super into that one. That would be my top stuff lately. Anything with Green Arrow and Mr. Miracle in it, I'll read.
Yes.
So
nice.
So I pick up all of that stuff.
Cool. Super cool.
Well, Thomas.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, thank you for being here so much. I appreciate it. I know you got to get going, get your dinner on, and but I really appreciate all of this. I'm sure we all appreciate it.
This is awesome.
For everybody else, if you want to stick around for a few more minutes to hang, I'm gonna let Thomas go. If you have any last words, Thomas, you want to give us, please do so, and then I will let you go.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm sure that a lot of the comments were nicer than they needed to be. No book is ever truly perfect, but I do appreciate the kind words. Check out Gunslinger. We go to press with Gunslinger Spawn. That's been a long time coming. I go to press with that on Monday, so it'll be a couple of long days there, and that'll be out soon. And then next week, I think, is King Spawn 2. I think. Yes, King Spawn 2 coming out. So. With the first hobby cover. So if you've seen the hobby, if your interior he did cover C, and we were talking about black and white, just to sidetrack. When he turned that cover in, so he had added the blood in the Capitol building. I'll just leave it at that. And then we were going to get it colored, and I convinced everybody that it was stronger black and white. So this is literally a black and white cover that he did. But there is the blood that he also did just for effect, so we knew where the colorist should put the blood. But we kept that completely uncovered. This was how he turned it into us, and I think it's a striking cover. I think this guy's going to be huge. I think this book is going to be a big thing for both him and Sean. So thank you, everybody, for supporting it. And, I hope you guys enjoy what's coming out.
Great. Thanks for your time. This was awesome.
If you ever want me on again, let me know. I had a great time with you guys.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
I accidentally...
we lost. Oh,
there we go. Now I got it. All right. So that was awesome having Thomas here and discussing some of that, getting some insight into the new Spawn world and where we're at. It's funny he actually brought up Checkmate by Bendis because I read that and was pretty stoked on it. And Caitlin, I know you're into the DC stuff more. I don't know if you actually read Checkmate or checked that out. I know you're more Green Lantern, but Checkmate I think would be definitely up your alley for sure.
Yeah, I haven't. I've kind of been trying to go out and read more stuff. So like you said, I've definitely been into more like Green Lantern just because I'm collecting that right now.
Right. But yeah, so I just want to lay this out now with the whole King Spawn because now that Thomas is gone and everybody's so polite, I honestly can't say there was anything about this that I actually could even think about in a negative element other than it wasn't long enough and I'm already waiting for number 2 to come out. But yeah, it's been the colors, the artwork, it's Spawn, it's dark, it's what I expected from Spawn and more. So it's been, and again, Sam and Twitch coming in, I'm stoked on that too. That was a good, nice surprise in there.
Can you guys explain to me the Sam and Twitch thing? Because you've mentioned it like several times, and I'm not familiar with what Sam and Twitch is.
Somebody want to clear? I'm going to get the image for her real quick. If anybody wants to chime in on that real quick, I'm sure Brandon knows quite a bit about Sam and Twitch.
Basically they're the city detectives for that kind of play in the Spawn universe. Just like in a quick, brief way of explaining it. They're the cops.
That's them right there.
Okay, the detectives. Okay.
Yeah,
kind of like the Jim Gordon and Bullock of the Spawn universe.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I really love their interplay, their relationship, and how they kind of interplay off each other. It's a funny relationship that those two have with each other as well. They bring a lot of cool stuff to the story, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And they have I think Kevin Smith, I'm not too sure if he's still the one attached, is doing the
they have their own series too.
Okay.
And they have their own series, yeah. A lot of stuff for you to look into with them. Their solo series is super good.
Yeah.
I love those covers on that.
They're super cool.
Dope.
If you're familiar with Alan Moore's Miracle Man, there's some hints towards Miracle Man, I think in the Sam and Twitch series. before all the legal
Okay.
issues got into stuff. But more stuff for you to, research and Wikipedia
Yeah,
at that point. Yeah.
No, I'm into. I feel like this is reading this King Spawn 1 is kind of opened up a whole can of worms for me, but I'm excited about it. So, yeah.
It is dangerous. I'm not going to lie. I mean, because Gunslinger is now coming out, and then we got the
You don't have
Scorch
to
coming
highlight
out.
me.
Oh, I was like, I'm still getting so used to all that. But yeah, with Gunslinger, with the Scorched, with like everybody, like with King Spawn, and it's a whole other financial, not burden, but investment going forward
Right.
in comics. I'm excited to dump my money into it because it's something I enjoy. But for those just getting into it, never going down this path, hopefully it'll be something that you guys will all like. But yeah, I'm stoked on it.
So
Mark, what-
Scorched. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say the Scorched. Did Thomas say that was like a more young adult title? Did he say that, or a teen, or what did he
I don't
say?
believe so.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Maybe
if
I
it's just
misheard.
Maybe I missed that.
Maybe I thought I heard him say like teen or youth title or something like that. Maybe not.
Maybe. I mean,
But I don't know what
couldn't see how
what
it
is
could be, but-
Scorch going to be about. I don't know what it's going to be about. So I'll have to look it up. But we know Gunslinger is coming out soon, and that was in this. It was a backup story. So
Scorched, I believe, is going to be a team book. Who's on that team or whatever?
oh,
I'm
a
not sure.
team. So I
yeah,
heard him say
team.
team. Okay,
Oh,
I thought I heard
there
him
you
say
go.
teen, like teenager. I was like, what?
that makes more sense. I was like, yeah, I couldn't
Okay.
see it being
Right.
young adults or
Yeah, no. Okay, yeah, I got it.
They play these games where they go hungry and they have to fight each other.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, Mark, just a quick reference. I know you sent this as a private message. I wouldn't mind if I answer it, but I'll just say it like this. Gunslinger, I'm doing a special package from my store on Gunslinger for the initial 7 books. You can get all 7 from me for under $25, including shipping and some other things. So that's I think I have it for like 22 something and some change or something like that if you buy the package from me for 7 books. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll
I think
add
it's
that
like
to my
like $21.89 or something. I know I'm gonna get it. I was planning on it because I got paid today, so I was already bargaining for that.
Perfect. But yeah, I figured that one's coming out because he did the same thing with the 1 and 250 variant. And so having to bring in so many issues, and again, I'm sitting on a ton of issues. That's my biggest complaint about King Spawn is the whole signed 1 and 250 situation that really, I think, hurt the small local comic book shops on some level. Because either A, we chose not to bring that one in, and so we missed out on that excitement and the customer base around that, or we did bring it in, and now we're sitting on a ton of books that it's hard for us to move on any kind of real level on that price point. So,
And I think they're doing the 250 also with the Gunslinger, correct?
Yes.
They are. And that's why I'm able to do that package deal that I'm doing with Gunslinger, because I've got already a customer in line for the 1 and 250
Cool.
as
Nice.
well.
Good.
So
Good.
I'm gonna do that and hopefully give you guys some of that reward.
Is it going to be a 7-issue series, or are you just doing the first 7 issues for the package deal?
What I meant by that, I guess I should say, the first 7 variants. So you're gonna get, it's all the same issue
7
number 1. So
covers of issue
yeah,
1.
so
Got it.
Gunslinger number 1, but all 7 variant covers, excluding the 1 and 50 and the 1 and 250. So you
Got
get
it.
all the different variants if you're a collector that likes them all. If you just want the single book, then work that out. But for all 7, so you get 7 books, all the same issue, just all the variants that are tied in with that.
I see. Yeah, that's a great idea for you to do that. Offer that. Cool.
I think that's like my least favorite thing about comics right now. All these variants that you want, and then like, do you want all of them or just pick one?
Like that's something I actually wanted to quickly bring up. Like number 1, like these are all amazing covers on these variants. I don't know if you can see them all, but I have A, B, C, D's in my hand, E, F, G, and then the 150H that are here. Beautiful art. I mean, they're amazing on that level. But I think Caitlin's right. Sometimes too many variants are too many variants, because it's like
Even at $2.99 price tag, man, that's too much.
Yeah, I mean, but that is something I want to bring up. Everybody that got theirs, did you get the favorite cover that you wanted? Because this is my favorite cover out of them.
Sean Murphy's one of my favorites. Yeah.
This
That
Murphy
one was cool.
dope. I mean, but I'm black and red fan, so I love
I
that.
just got the cover B.
Right?
I love that.
But
that's a
Finch
dope
one
cover.
is another one of my favorites. I love this David Finch cover.
No, Finch is dope too.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
Yeah, I think this time, because I wasn't sure, how invested I'd become, or if I would even like Spawn in general. So I was like, okay, one cover is more than enough, and maybe next issue I'll feel differently, or I could, maybe get two, or pick a different one or something. I don't know.
I do think that I got to double check, but I think King Spawn 2 only has 2 variants, if I remember right. I'm gonna double check, but it's not the full 7 or actually they had
That makes sense, yeah.
7, 8. They had 9 variants for King Spawn 1, including the 1 of 250 and the 1 of 50. So and Gunslinger is the same exact way. They have 9 actual variants that include the 1 of 250 and the 1 of 50 as well. So
since we're doing House of Slaughter next month, how many variants does House of Slaughter have?
Oh my gosh, dude. I got a big order on that one too.
I think there were a lot.
If we're also talking about like the 1 in 1,000, the store exclusives, there's probably a good 15 variants that are for the House and Slaughter right now. Because I don't know like if other stores are getting their own store exclusives and how that's worked. So it could actually be a lot more than that. So it's
and you're
going to be
doing a bundle deal on that too, correct?
I am. I have a couple bundle deals that I think one that's up right now that you can get, and I'm working out a couple other ones because that's going to be another big book that's going to be out.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys: is Gunslinger Spawn new? Is he a new character, or has he been around? And they're just bringing him back in a new series. Like, is he new?
He's been around. What was his first showing? Was back in like early 100s, I think. Wasn't that Brandon?
It was.
Yeah, and then he made a reappearance also recently. He was in the Spawn universe. So he's always been kind of like an in and out kind of character.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking up his first appearance right now.
So I'm gonna have to.
It was in issue 119. He had a cameo in issue 119, and just holy crap, his first appearance is actually blowing up on eBay right now.
It's been high for a while. It's pretty insane because it was at that time Spawn wasn't a big deal, so real low print runs for all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go, but I got a question I asked those that this is their first Spawn experience. How are you going to, based off of King Spawn 1, are you going to be diving into the rest of this Spawn universe?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Kalen's a yes.
What's your next book you're going to find?
I have no idea. Probably just King Spawn 2. Probably just going to continue with this one for a while.
Yeah, same with me. I'm going to do King Spawn 2, and I'm going to get the Gunslinger Spawn.
I'm definitely
I'll start there.
I'm gonna be adding it to my pull list with you. So King Spawn and Gunslinger. I gotta email you that this weekend so you can get that on my pull list. So I'm super excited just to be a part of like a new Spawn chapter. And like I said last time, I grew up with some of this, and growing up as like my dad being a Kiss fan and seeing Gene Simmons and then seeing Spawn, I was like,
okay, so that makes more sense, Brandon, because like you're the only one that really bought Kiss from me when that dropped, and I was like, huh. Okay, so that makes sense.
And I've seen that movie. It's based off of the old 80s Kiss movie they did, Phantom of the Park, and it's ridiculous. So I was like, I want to see how they're going to twist that around. But yeah, all of that's always been a super big hype. I got that Bruce Timm Spawn drawing, and Todd got to sign it, and I've met Todd a handful of times, and my fiance as well. She's gotten signings from him. He's always been great, and I love meeting creators who are just as amazing in person as their art is. So it's just I just love supporting that in general. It just makes me happier by it.
That's awesome.
Cool, guys. I gotta bounce. Pleasure being here with you all. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, Mark. Have a good one.
Awesome
all right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good night.
I gotta take off myself. But thank you guys so much. Check out Apollo City
Absolutely.
Comics, and everyone watching. If you listen to our episodes, there's a secret discount for Coffee and a Comic if you check it out. So make
That's
sure
true.
to like, subscribe. We're on all podcast platforms. And Frank, it's been a pleasure. Michelle, Caitlin, thank you guys, and I can't wait to talk to you guys later. You guys are the best.
I think on that note, we should wrap it up. And anybody else want to say anything, little shout outs or anything else that you guys want to put out there?
No, I mean, except for thank you for having me on. I think
Yeah,
this
thank
book
you.
club is a great idea. I'm excited to continue and see what other books we're going to discuss. And it was nice to meet all of you that were here with us tonight. So yeah, you can just find me on Instagram posting books from my comic collection.
Yeah,
That's
check out
right.
Merlin Comics. It's a great page, one of my favorites. So go check her out. Great stuff.
Thanks. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's all I got. So this has been awesome.
Brilliant.
Caitlin?
Well, then I'm gonna
Nice to meet
Yeah, you
close
too.
it out.
Awesome.
But Caitlin, what's your new Instagram? It's Green Lantern.
All Things Lantern.
All Things Lantern. That's right.
Yeah.
So check
Okay.
her out.
I'll
All
That's,
Things
find
that's
it.
like the
Lantern.
majority of my collection.
Nice.
Awesome.
I haven't really posted on it in a while though. So
We'll check it out anyway.
You'll do
Yeah,
stuff.
we will.
So
Yeah.
that's
That,
it.
that way we can connect
Appreciate
at least,
it,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and chat and about King Spawn
Yeah.
and DMs.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. Where it's at. So, all right. So I just want to leave it in this. So next month, I haven't got the date exactly, but it's going to be probably around the 17th or 18th. Again, sometime around that, about 5 o'clock California time. Again, will probably be the next one, but it's going to be House of Slaughter. If you're a member of the book club, make sure you take advantage of the 35% off code that we've got out. I'll be emailing you again with that information. If you're not a member of the book club yet, those that are watching or watching on the rewind, join the book club. Go to coffeeandacomic.com. Find the area where you just fill out the little form. You'll get the information sent, and you can also jump on that discount as well. If not, you can just pop in any other time. Something Wong, thanks for sticking around. Collect 'em All or Die Trying, thanks for being a part of the book club and sticking around as well. And everybody else that's in the comments that are still left. And if you're catching us on the rewind, please go check out the first issue that we did on Mom, Mother, and Madness. And stay tuned for the next one. So thanks again for all joining, and stay caffeinated and positive, guys. But I'm going to end it here and
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Peace out.
Thanks.
thank
Later.
you. Bye guys.
Yeah.